Good morning.
Yeah, good morning.
All right, so it is pretty obvious Pastor Tim is not here this morning, and we're super excited for him and Bonnie, and actually Pastor Brenda is away as well, and they're just enjoying some time away, some vacation. They deserve it. They work hard, and so when they leave me to it, I hope I can fill their shoes just a little bit. So we're doing this summer series on the Beatitudes, and I have to say that I've read the Beatitudes many times this sermon, and until you really break it down, until you dig in and study, maybe word by word, you take it apart, you don't really realize that it's more than just a sentence. It's more than just, blessed are because of this, blessed are for they, blessed are so they. It's more than that, and this was becoming quite apparent to me as I did some study. And so I am on blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. And I struggled a little bit with this beatitude, and I think probably because I struggle with this characteristic of meekness a little bit in my own life. And partly because of all that it encompasses. We hear this word meek, and I don't know, we have this idea in our head of what it means to be meek. What does it mean? What does it look like? And so I realized what it doesn't look like as I was doing this study. And so as some of you might have heard, we were just at Caton's Island doing their junior camp and boys adventure. And so one of the things about this camp that I really love is the fact that it's practically run by teenagers. So 17, 16, 18, like really young. And this is their staff. 90% of their staff is comprised of teenagers. And so I have this unfortunate problem in this area. I guess when I'm older, I'll appreciate it. But I blend in with those teenagers really well. Really well. I'm not very big or intimidating. I try, but I'm not. Max is, I don't know, I liked it better when he was shorter than me, but now he's taller than me, so it's a lot harder to boss some of the kids around. Joy is a lot taller than me. So all of these teenagers are running around, running this camp, and I blend in, and you're the youth pastor is something I get quite a bit. I don't know, maybe I just need to be taller, bigger, I'm not sure. And so meekness was something I had a hard time embodying this week, because when you're surrounded by teenagers who've been there, they know what they're doing, they're the ones telling me what to do or instructing me on where to go, and I'm like, you know what? I am 31 years old. How dare you? How old are you? I was, when you say all these things about like, I was doing that before you were even born or before you were thought of, and in my head I'm like, no, Courtney, you don't want to be a jerk. You want to be nice. You want these people to ask you back one day. You can rein it in. You can be humble. You can be meek. You can. It was interesting that I was studying about this characteristic as I was going into this place where people were going to be telling me what to do at the right age of 16. So I was having a hard time, and there was this one point during the week where, the director, he'd asked us, can you guys, you and your team do dishes in the kitchen? And I have grown up going to camp, and I have been in the kitchen. I know how to do dishes, and so I go in there, and they're like, okay, so you just do this, and you do that, and then you have to do this, and they're telling me, and I'm thinking in my head, I'm like, this is not my first rodeo. Like, I have been here, I know what I'm doing, so I'm like, yeah, sure, all sweet on the outside. On the inside, I was just, how dare they? And I just, I rein that in, I just act like that, and in my head I'm thinking, you know what, Courtney, this is exactly what you're preaching to yourself. This week I had that, so I have that problem where, if someone comes along telling me to do something, or someone is doing something I think I might be able to do it a little bit better, I have to talk to myself, you don't always have to give advice, or you don't always have to say, you know what, it's actually better if you do it this way. And it's okay if somebody knows something more than you do or different than you do. had these quick reactions. Ask any of my friends, they tell me, oh, this person was mean to me today. And I'm like, are you serious? How dare they? And I start glaring and I get all like fired up and I'm not meek. I'm not. I don't know why. I didn't know that I had a temper until I got into ministry, I guess. So that's interesting. God's working on me. Any situation, I have this temper. And so continuing study revealed more and more what it doesn't mean to be meek. And mainly, most importantly, what I realized is that meek doesn't mean weak. We think this word meek and we think someone who is kind of quiet, unassuming, a doormat. But it's not. Meek does not equal weak. Meekness, by definition, it's indicative of a strong inner self. A person who is meek is tranquil, untroubled. I think I'm tranquil when I'm sleeping, and that's about it. But I don't know if that counts necessarily. Actually, Aristotle said this: someone who has the passion of resentment under control. As mentioned above, I'm highly protective. Don't cross my friends unless you want me to shoot daggers at you with my eyes forever. And so I'm working on this, having the passion of resentment under control. I'm being tranquil and calm and content and remembering that just because I'm meek, just because I'm humble, just because I'm not lashing out every second, it doesn't mean that I'm weak. It's interesting because I have the nerve to tell my students, and they can probably remember this. I tell them, don't let your emotions rule your life, your decisions. Don't let them get in your way. How you feel in a moment isn't always reality. And there's a saying that says, those who can't do, teach. And so I guess that's where I am. I'm hoping that they'll get that before I do, and so I'm working. But all these words kept coming up when I was doing research for meek. Strong, strength, control, power. I came across words like that constantly in the study. I thought it was so interesting because we assume that meekness refers to someone who is a doormat to the people around them. We assume that somebody who is nice and not loud and obnoxious and whatever, we assume that they're the kind of people who let people tell them what to do, run all over them, that kind of thing. This person's voice, we think, we look at them and they're so meek and their voice is never heard. Maybe they're even kind of invisible a little bit. They're really not really someone you notice. You don't take them seriously. Maybe that person even sounds a little bit like you. Nobody really wants to be referred to as a doormat, I don't think. Louder opinions trump your own. You follow, you don't lead, you agree, you don't decide. The spotlight is not for you. The spotlight is not for you. This is what we think when we think meekness. We assume it means weak. But I want to encourage you because I'm reminding myself and I'm reminding others that those traits and those tendencies bring you a lot closer to where you need to be than you might realize, because they point to a strong inner self. Meekness points to a strong inner self. They speak of that calm spirit, of tranquility, of restfulness, of a content mind. Meekness is strong meekness, a strong inner self. And so has anyone heard of Captain America before? Captain America, anyone? Cool, thank you, John. So Captain America, the little background story of him is that he's this kind of frail, small guy who, in his movie, he wants to join the army. He wants to help his country. He wants to fight for his country, but he's too small. His body is frail. He's sick. His health is terrible, and so he can't. He wants to. He has this courage. He has a strong inner self. He has just this amazing heart to want to help, but he doesn't look like he can be of any good to anybody. And so in the end, he finally makes it in, and in the end, this doctor has developed this serum that once injected into this, person. By the way, this is all fake, just in case anybody's wondering. Captain America is fictional. Once this serum is injected into somebody, thank you, Natasha, it kind of multiplies whatever's inside of that person. And so if inside a person is that courage, is that strength, is this calmness, this tranquility, this bravery, this strong, amazing heart, this meekness. This serum multiplies all that, and this person can become what their inside self is. Their physical appearance becomes what their outside or what their inside looks like. And so meekness might look like something to us. It might look like weakness. It might look like somebody who can't do or say or really be much of anything. But on the inside, it's this strength. It's strong. It's tranquil. It's untroubled. It's controlled. It's a hero, basically. So what does God have to say about meekness? This is my verse. Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. What does God say about that? And it sounds like to me the Bible does this thing where it always says one thing. There's a deeper meaning. You have to look a little bit closer, a little bit deeper. The parables, all those things, ears to hear, let it hear, and all the things that cause us to kind of say, is this what it's really talking about, or am I missing something here? And so I wanted to know, and so I broke this verse apart a little bit. Blessed are the meek. So in the Greek New Testament, the word for meek is, I'm not completely sure how to say it, but it's praus, P-R-A-U-S. And that word means strength brought under control. Strength brought under control. And if I could stop speaking right now, I would. Because I just thought that it was perfect. I was like, of course. Of course it's not exactly what we think it is. Strength brought under control. Meekness is strength brought under control. Because how amazing is that picture? How amazing is it to think something strong and huge and amazing and great, and then all of a sudden realize that it's not what it looks like. It's something else. Strength brought under control. Do you think of a dam, like holding all this thousands of tons of water back? And it's used, it's all this strength brought under control for energy, for electricity. It's all of this power that's subdued, yes. Contained, yes. But it's definitely not weak. Meekness is not weakness. Meekness is strength brought under control. I thought that was so amazing. I think of, all the times when I'm thinking, get my temper all fired up and everything, and just harness that a little bit and allow it to be under control. My strength brought under control. And you think about all through the Bible when the Israelites are expecting their Messiah to be coming and saving them from oppression. And they're expecting Jesus, their Messiah, to be this amazing, great warrior with physical power and this intimidating presence and destruction of enemies and, coming in and just doing what they always wanted to do. And Jesus comes along. He's unassuming. And he's kind of short, I think the Bible says. He's not anything that you would think of this strength that they needed. So there's confusion. He wasn't someone who demanded attention with his looks or his presence. He didn't have this great military force. He was a carpenter's son who went around collecting misfits for his disciples like they were going out of style. And the Israelites are probably thinking, I'm confused. What are you doing? Why aren't you collecting this army and saving us and trying to help us? But he's going around just being like, hey, let's go catch some men. Let's be fishers of men. And he's going and he's getting the most unassuming people to come along with him. But Jesus actually embodied the strength under control. We think meekness means weakness, but actually meekness means Jesus. He was and is the very literal representation of meekness. One writer says that meekness describes a person who has channeled their strengths into the service of God. So I can think about that for me. You can think about that for you. Jesus did that. He was actually God in flesh, channeling his strengths, allowing God to channel and use his strengths for the service of God. I can take maybe my temper a little bit, and I can take my fiery, lash outs, and I can take all of these comebacks and this protectiveness and whatever. Maybe I can say, God, please, God, what can you do with this? Please take this strength, I don't know what to call it exactly, and bring it under your control. Another person said, it is power to absorb adversity and criticism without lashing back. Does anyone else have that problem? Does anyone else just have a quick response for whatever? Raise your hand, please don't make me on this. Somebody says something to you, you're like, well, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh no, I have to apologize now. I hate apologizing. Yes, I do. I'll do it if I don't like it. Meekness is strength brought under control. Meekness is not weakness. I cannot stress this enough. I love it. I love thinking that this word doesn't mean what I think it means anymore. I love that. I love that when I can hold my tongue somehow, or when I can allow my temper to not control me, that I'm not being a doormat. I'm not allowing somebody to step right over me, or on me for that matter. It's actually strength being brought under control. Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. It doesn't mean weakness. It means strong people. Strong people. It'll be a challenge for me to go from thinking meekness as weakness to meekness as Jesus. Meekness as Jesus. Jesus, God in flesh. He healed. He commanded. He rebuked. He had authority. He wasn't weak. He was meek. He was strength brought under control. That's something I kept getting stuck on. I couldn't get over when I was writing the sermon. I'm like, okay, yes, so meek doesn't mean weak, but who and what is the main point? And the main point is that Jesus is our example. The main point is that we try to be like Jesus, who was meek, strength brought under control, and that's us. That's who we try to be like. That is the point. Isn't our whole life about trying to be like him, under God's control? Meekness is Jesus, and we want to be like him. That's why meek inherit the earth. Not because we're the underdog, not because this backwards or upside down kingdom stuff that the Bible's all about. It's because being meek means being like Jesus, and being like Jesus means that we're part of that family. We're God's adopted children. We're saved. We have grace. We have forgiveness. Meekness means we inherit the earth because we're God's children. It's allowing our strengths and talents and gifts and lives to be brought under control in order to point to God, just like Jesus' life and death did. So meekness revealed, we know what it really is, it's inner strength. Meekness revealed, we know what it really is, it's Jesus. We strive to be like Jesus. He had inner strength that we couldn't even comprehend. And so we strive to be like him. Strength brought under control. We know it looks like him. So it's not about you. It's about being like Jesus. Following this example of strength under control. And I know I keep saying that, but if this is anything I want you to take away from this message today, Meekness, strength under control. You can write that down. It's probably on the back of your bulletin too. Strength brought under control. For the sake of pointing people to God. For the sake of people who need him. Because doesn't everything we do have to come back to pointing people to Jesus about the gospel? So how to be meek in 3 easy steps. Okay, just 3. There they are, right there. Or one easy step is you just need to basically be the embodiment of a WWJD bracelet. Does anyone have one of those still? Every single situation. It's like you stop, look at your wrist. All right, WWJD. And then you go from there. I have a feeling I'd be looking at that bracelet a lot. So 3 steps and a few things to notice about Jesus. One quote says, "No man endured more wrong or endured it more patiently than Jesus." It is patient in reception of injuries. And so I'm not talking about if somebody hits you and you hit them back. You're not going to be like, "Oh, that's fine." It would hurt, probably. You might want to hit them back. I wouldn't blame you. But I'm talking about people treating you badly. I'm talking about horrible, terrible things, hurtful things said to your face behind your back. People, messing up your character, destroying your reputation. Your family, your friends, all under attack. Meekness is, though, patience and reception of those injuries. And it doesn't mean you're allowing yourself to be treated in a way and you can't fight back and no one can protect you and you just have to deal with it. You're just like, oh, well, it just means that this inner strength that you have is strong. It just means that because you're being like Jesus, because in this inner strength that you have from him, it means that these things bounce right off. It just doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter. The passion of resentment under control. I loved that quote. Meekness is patience in reception of injuries. 2 Corinthians 12:10 says that this is why, for Christ's sake, I delight in weaknesses, in insults, in hardships, in persecutions, in difficulties. For when I am weak, then I am strong. Gosh, that's a perfect verse. So amazing. Delighting in those things. And I'm not going to say it'll be easy. But there's this part of you, there's this point when you're dealing with those things where maybe if you can just take a minute, breathe, separate for a second. This what I'm dealing with is absolutely awful. Gosh, do I ever want to lash out and hurt the people who are hurting me, or hurt the people who hurt my friends, or hurt the people that have hurt my family? But meekness says to be patient. Jesus exemplifies patience in reception of those injuries, of that hurt. Because it doesn't matter. Because in those times of trouble, of trying to be meek, we rely on Christ, like that verse says, to be our strength. For when I'm weak, then I am strong. Oh man, I would love to have Jesus' strength instead of my own. I consider myself to be pretty strong physically. I know that I just like it. Carly and I pushed our car once, I'll just put that right out there, by ourselves, in the snow. So just be amazed by that. But when it comes to my spirituality, when it comes to my faith, when it comes to these situations, I can't rely on my own strength. I want Christ's strength to be what I rely on. We delight in allowing him to step in and be strong for us so we don't mess it up. You know? His strength doesn't fail, ours does. His strength doesn't fail. So yeah, delight is a pretty, it's a pretty interesting word in those situations. Delight in the hardships, delight in the suffering, delight in weakness. Yeah, difficult. Really difficult. And oftentimes you'll find that people who are happy in their trials and tribulations, when they're like, oh well, Could be worse. And you're like, you're annoying. You kind of want them to be mad almost. Why? They're allowing Christ to be their strength. Their meekness is showing how strong their inner self is, how strong Christ is in them. And so we have that patience, and we try because of verses like Psalm 23:4 that says, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. Your rod and your staff comfort me. So we have patience in reception of injuries, and we are meek because we trust Jesus knows what we're going through, and he has our back, and he wants us to be meek. We're strong with him. We know that when we're walking through those hard times, when we're walking through the valley of the shadow of death, how ominous does that sound? That doesn't encompass everything that we might encounter in this life. I don't know what does. But if his rod and his staff, if he is with me, if his strength is my strength in those times, then I think I can afford a little patience in reception of some injuries. So we have that patience. It's not easy. But we endure because we are meek, because we want to be like Christ. Because that is our goal. We want to be like him. And it would be easy for that patience to give way to resentment, I know. Because you ask yourself, God, why does this have to happen to me? Why did my family go through that? I thought you would protect me. I thought this would be easier. I thought your strength was going to make everything easier for me. I thought that kind of meant I wouldn't really experience trouble the way other people did. God, I thought. And so resentment and distrust. But meekness trusts. Meekness trusts in spite of it all. You think of Jesus in the garden, and just before he's being brought to be crucified, you think of him kneeling there and crying, and his disciples are somewhere away sleeping, and his friends, they pretty much abandoned him, whether they meant to or not. But he's kneeling there and he's crying and he's sweating drops of blood and he's saying, God, if there's any way out of this, please, God, get me out of this. But if not, your will be done in my life. It's such an incredible act of trust. His inner strength, his strong, his meekness trusted. His meekness trusted God. And so our meekness needs to trust. Our meekness needs to have patience and endure. Our meekness needs to trust. God, not my will, but yours be done. So the verse in the Bible that says God will work everything together for our good, it's so true. It doesn't mean that only good things will happen to us. And it doesn't mean that we won't experience hardships. And it doesn't mean that bad things will never happen. But it does mean that God is pulling things together in his plan and his will to say, yeah, okay, this is tough, but I'm going to work it together for good. It's all throughout the Bible. It's our entire plan. It's his entire plan of salvation. It's sin to Jesus' death, to salvation. God took sin and he counteracted that with Jesus. And he took Jesus' death and he said, okay, from that, salvation. Can you trust God then? Because that right there tells me that we can. We can trust. Meekness trusts. Jesus' life wasn't his own. His life was God's to harness. His strengths were brought under control to be used by God. And so last, and the worship team is going to come and just play softly. One person said that Jesus preached the Sermon on the Mount so that God would get the glory for the way that the disciples lived. So Jesus lived and preached the Sermon on the Mount so that we would live and preach and point our own lives to God He taught the disciples how to be. The Bible helps us to be the way that we need to be in order to point to God. Point to God. And so meekness allows your life to point to God. It lets your life give God glory. Meekness, wrote one author, shows the value of God, and I loved that. Our life should be lived in such a way that people say, that's valuable. I want that. It points to God. And so blessed are those who patiently receive wrong, who endure. Blessed are those who trust in the Lord. Blessed are those who let their lives point to God. Blessed are the meek or the strong, for they shall inherit the earth. And so this song that we're going to sing and play in just a minute is something that was going through my head as I was writing down these words, and the chorus of it says, "Oh, to be like you, to give all I have just to know you." And so I wonder when we ask God to help us be meek. It's not something I've asked a ton because I guess I just never really understood that characteristic, that trait until this week. And so I want to be meek. I want to be strong. I want to be like Jesus. I want to endure hardship. I want to trust in hardship. I want to have my life point to God because of that meekness. And so as we sing and listen to the song, can everyone just stand if you could? And just in these closing moments, we can listen to these words and pray, God, give us inner strength. Help us to be meek. Help us to be like you. God, help us to trust that all things will come together for good, that you'll work it to be good. God, help us to trust that your strength is enough. God, help us to embody meekness. Help us to be like that. Help our lives to point to God always. Gosh, I want that so bad. I want people to see what's valuable about Christ, about God. I want to be like him. I want to be like him. And so I hope that you want to be like him. I can't imagine a better goal to work toward. You know, often people ask me, where do you see yourself in 5 years? Where do you see yourself in 2 years? What do you think? What's your future? I don't know. I'm here. One thing I know for sure is that I want to be like Jesus. I want my life to point toward him, no matter who I encounter. And I want that to be what Kingsway is about too. I want Kingsway to point to God. And so I want to pray for you, and we're going to sing this song, and it it talks about being like Jesus, having this inner strength, being meek, having this face of Jesus is with me. So I'm going to pray, and I would just ask, if you would ask, God, help me be like you. Jesus, help me be like you. Help me to be meek. God, thank you so much for it today. Thank you for your word. Thank you for strength. thank you, God, that with you in our lives, nothing is what we expect or what it seems, but God, you're always challenging and you're asking us to look deeper. And God, when we do, we're not disappointed because we realize that to be meek means to be strong. We realize to be meek means to be like Jesus. We realize that when we allow people to, or when people hurt us or injure us or try to take us down, we realize that the inner strength we get from you that says don't react, that says be patient, that says trust, we realize that comes from you. God, help us to look like strength brought under control. This force, this incredible group of people who just seems to be saying to the world, you know, we've got something valuable, pointing to you. God, help us be meek. Help us to be meek. Help us to be who we need to be in you. So we're just going to sing. Pastor Carly's going to lead, and then I'll come up and close. But just take this time and pray and ask, and we say, God, where can you come in? How can you be strong? How can you help me to trust and endure and point to you? Thank you, Jesus.
Grace, what have you done? Murder for me on that cross, accused in absence of wrong, the sin washed away in your blood, too much to make sense of it all. I know your love breaks my scandal of grace, you died in my place, my soul will live. Oh, to be like you, give all I have just to know you. Jesus, there's no one beside you, forever the hope in my heart. Death, where is your sting? Power is dead as my sin. The cross saw me do it. Mercy, my heart now sing. The day and trouble shall come, and I know your strength is enough. Scandal of grace, you died in my place, so my soul will live. Oh, to be like you, give all I have just to know you. Jesus, there's no one beside you, forever the hope in my heart. Oh, to be like
like you. Jesus, let us be like you. God, give us strength. Be our inner strength. Help us to be strength brought under your control. God, help us to be meek. We love you so much. We want to be like you. We want our lives to point to you. We love you. We love you so much. In Jesus' name. Amen. Amen. I hope you have a great week. I'll see you next Sunday. God bless you. Pastor Harley's going to sing again as you go, but and if you have access or contact Pastor Tim, shoot him a happy birthday message, and I'll send him that video. So God bless you. We love you. I'll see you next week.
Gonna be like you. If I have just to know you, Jesus, there's no one beside you. Forever the hope in my heart. The hope in me like you. Give all I have just to know you. Jesus, there's no one beside you. Forever the hope in my heart. And it's all because of you, Jesus. It's all because of you, Jesus. It's all because of your love that my soul will live. Oh, to be like you, give all I have just to know you. Jesus, there's no one beside you. Forever the hope in my heart. Oh, to be like you, give all I have just to know you. Jesus, there's no one beside you. Forever the hope in my heart.
Yeah, I know. I just separated them gently.